Hey, if you want to save some time building your software, just start out with one of the out-of-the-box MVC frameworks. MVC. Capital M, capital V, capital C. MVC. Some of us in engineering land might recognize the acronym MVC as standing for multivariable calculus from mathematics, but that is not the only meaning that it can have. MVC can also stand for Model View Controller. Model View Controller, and that's in the world of software engineering or software development, and it's actually really popular in web development these days, so you might hear about it. What is an MVC? What is a Model View Controller? Well, it's just a design pattern or a structure or an architecture in which you can build a piece of software. What that means is when you're writing some code and building a piece of software, you might write it in three main parts. You might have a model part, a view part, and a controller part. And what is each part? Well, the model part will consist of all the data in your software, all the information in it. And the view part is just how a user is going to see that data. And then the controller is basically how the user might tell the program what data the user wants to see. The controller is basically connecting the view to the model, connecting the data to what the user sees. All of what I just said is really abstract, I know, and so maybe we can tie this to some kind of physical example. Let's think about the analogy of a library, of like a physical public library that you can go to and get your books at. What if we think about a public library as an MVC, as a model view controller structure? Well, what is the model? It's that information contained in that library. It's all the stories from C.S. Lewis and the Iliad and all those self-help books and psychology textbooks, all that information contained in that library, that's our model. What is the view of the library? The view is how our users are going to get that information, how they're going to perceive that information. So most of the time, it's probably going to be those books. I mean, the user is going to be presented information in book form for the most part at our library. And the controller, what's the controller? Well, how is the user going to decide what information he or she is going to get? Well, the controller in this case is probably the librarian and all the different rules set up for how someone can take a book and check it out and read it for a couple weeks or look at it in the library itself. It's all those rules regulating how a user is going to take some of that data and put it back. And maybe the user is going to actually modify the data in that library by donating books, and there are rules regulating that. And so all of those rules and regulations and the librarian, that is the controller. Put the model, the view, and the controller together, the stories and the books and the rules, and you've got a library. All of that together is our MVC architecture. Software is kind of the same. You have data in it, you have different ways of looking at that data, and you have different rules for manipulating or getting that data. The cool thing about MVCs is that this structure is meant to be a little bit easier to modify. It's supposed to be modular. You're supposed to be able to pull out one model and replace it with another model, for example. Like we could wipe out all the information in our library if we really needed to and replace it with a whole bunch of news stories. What about the view? Well, we don't have to have books to see all our data. I mean, in history, we've changed our views in our libraries by adding computers, podcasts, audiobooks, movies. We can take our stories and view them or understand them and perceive them in different ways. Just like our software can present information inside the software to the user in different ways. So an MVC is supposed to simplify how we think about and program our software, and it also makes it a little bit more modular. That is a lot of jargon for today. MVC is our engineering word of the day. Thanks for listening to Software Jargon at the Engineering Word of the Day podcast, hosted by yours truly, Pius Wong. I also host another podcast called the K-12 Engineering Education Podcast, and that is a longer form podcast all about different topics in engineering education today. So go check that one out at k12engineering.net.